Hi, Bob. Bob Greenberg, how you doing?
Good, Bob. How are you? What you got?
Good. Can you clarify and maybe Melissa or somebody else can jump in, the streaming rights fee that you approved? Because if I'm hearing what I heard today, it's basically $200 per event. And I did not hear any clarification if that was for professional outlets or all streaming. And my point is, if it's for everybody, then that's going to be a real hit on the radio station. So what is exactly what you voted on today?
What we voted on, Bob, was the video streaming for schools only.
Okay.
It is not the commercial manufacturers providing streaming. It is a discount fee that is reduced from 50% off, which is our policy for schools. But if schools are doing that during the regular season and during the first district level of playoffs, we wanted to offer them the similar type of discount throughout the playoffs to the problems that we're having with the number of spectators. So it is, and it does not impact the radio fees at all. I think the radio fees have been established and they're reasonable. And it was just for the membership.
Yeah, my only point was, I don't think it was mentioned that it was for schools only in the board meeting. So I think you clarified that, and that's what I was looking for.
Okay. All
Thank
right.
you.
If we didn't, we apologize, but I thought Jen might have said schools, but hell, we could have missed it. It seems to be that way right now.
No, it's all right. You clarified
Trying to
it.
stay on the horse here.
Thank you.
Hey there, Bob.
Hey, Pat.
How are you?
Good.
Good. Hey, I may have missed this earlier too. What's the fan policy for state basketball and individual wrestling at the Giant Center and for the state team wrestling at Cumberland Valley?
I can't hear you again, Pat. I think you said, what's the spectator at Giant Center for wrestling and basketball? And
Right.
then team wrestling at Cumberland Valley.
Correct. You got it. Yep.
Okay, I can address the Giant Center first. The Giant Center max spectators, since they have 10,500 seats, is 500. So we have a little bit of a challenge with wrestling because we're going to have that 500 is everybody. That includes, and where I was going was that includes wrestlers, coaches, table workers, officials, security. There are escorts that they have in the aisles, medical personnel, our sport medicine staff, our physicians. So I think we did some crunching in numbers and we might be around 100 to 125 for wrestling. What we'd like to do, which we think the board helped us today with the 25 for basketball, is somehow come up where we can keep the occupancy to 100 or less, so we could possibly offer schools upwards of 200 per team. One other thing for basketball, Pat, that you may want to know, and I see Bob McCool on the call, all our games, which in the past have been double headers, are single games. They will most probably be GA seating, but they will be single games of 12, 2:30, 5, and 7:30. We're going to go 2.5 hour stints so that we can, at the conclusion of the contest, we can clean the Giant Center, get the fans out, and then bring them back. There will be no doubleheader tickets. They will all be single games. We had to do that because of the protocols that we've been put in place. Mike, Craig, are you still on the call? Thought I saw you, but he might have got off. Cumberland Valley, we're going to have very, very limited amount of spectators. At this time, I'm not sure that we're even going to have any for team. It will be on Flow Wrestling. Every bout from the super regional on will be streamed on Flow. So that's the best we got this year with those limitations. If you folks have any wherewithal with people in the governor's office or anyone to get those spectators limitations relaxed, we would certainly appreciate it, because we certainly want as many folks in the stands as we can for a host of reasons. Obviously, atmosphere is one of them, but also just the ability to pay the bills. So with that being said, that's where we are. I hope I got everything for you, Pat. And I think Melissa said with diving, we're going to have a limited number of spectators, but with swimming, unfortunately, with the number of swimmers, coaches, deck personnel and everything, of sport medicine, we will not be able to have any spectators at this time. If it changes, boy, that'd be great.
Got it. Thanks, Bob.
Yep, thanks, Pat.
Just as a follow-up, you mentioned it, I want to make sure. So the start times for basketball is now 100% official, 12, 2:30, 5, and 7:30?
Yeah, yes, Bob, unless we have a change from the Giant Center, but that's what we're operating off of.
Okay. All right, so the Giant Center could change that?
Well, nothing's really finalized till we get there at that time, but right now, yes.
Okay.
There are standard fare for the reasons we said.
Okay.
Thank you, and I got your list of the cast of characters, appreciate that. If you have the opportunity, if Matt could give us some of the staffing requests, that would help, because we got to count all those people in the 500.
Yeah, well, again, most of ours will be outside the building, so inside the building shouldn't be much more than that plus camera operators.
Well, I'll tell you, Gary's going to be upset that he's outside.
Well, some things are more appropriate than others.
Hey, Bob, Chris Harlan. Am I
Hi,
correct
Chris.
in the mask mandate form that you guys are going to plan to require that for teams that will participate in inter-district play, but it's not going to be required for district play, but for inter-district, they will have to fill that out and certify who has exemptions?
Yeah, we're going to utilize it in inter-district play.
What is it about the form that you like? What do you think purpose it serves?
Provides communication between the schools so they know who has taken the exception, and also that they have pre-screened all their athletes.
Will there be any hurdle that they have to clear? Or is it just, as long as they sign the paper, they don't have to have any medical slip saying that they do, or anything beyond just the signature of a school administrator?
The front page of that document is what we used in the fall and worked quite well. So we will continue with that. We thought it was successful. It was easy for people, and it gave us the most up-to-date information because it was the day of the event for the staffing and the athletes. So that's what we like about it. It's current information, helps communication.
Dr. Lombardi, when I read that form, it sounded like that they should write exemptions for individual students. Is there any way the PIAA would accept a school saying that all of their student athletes are exempt from wearing it? Is there like a cutoff?
Each individual school, Ally, by the order, has to do an individual assessment from our understanding of this. So there's no blanket waivers. I think even in the order, it says people are upset that they might have to wear a mask, but there is no blanket exception for a team. It has to be individual assessment from the order that was written from the Secretary of Department of Health.
Thank you. Just wanted to clarify for people who are asking.
You're welcome. Thanks, Ally.
Bob, does the individual assessment mean like a doctor's note provided to their school district, or like how is that individual assessment assessed?
Well, we've had a lot of different ways, Jake. We've been informed that some moms and dads bring in a doctor's note from their personal physician and give it to the athletic director and say, Bob Lombardi is my son and he has activity-induced asthma, and I don't want him wearing a mask because it causes a problem with his breathing. So individual assessments are to be made at the school level for each athlete. And that's why when we gave our direction in December, we asked school solicitor along with the team physician to make those assessments for athletes.
As I'm reading it, Dr. Lombardi, it sounds like that if you have an exemption, that will apply while you're playing or on the court or on the mat. But as soon as you're done, it goes right back on no matter what for everyone on the benches and things like that. Is that correct?
That's correct, because that's what the order would like to have committed. And I think you'll see that at every level. We would like to see the old rule if possible, but that's not what we have at this time. But that was changed, I think, November 18th.
Bob, Keith Groller from the Morning Call.
Hey, Keith.
How you doing?
Good.
Can you just gauge how much problem has there been across the state with, obviously, we had a team that was suspended for 4 days here. Liberty High School was suspended for 4 days in District 11. But has there been a lot of trouble, a lot of things that you're aware of that was brought to your attention where people are just not observing the appropriate mask wearing as the Department of Health would like it mandated?
I guess, Keith, for me to respond to that is kind of a subjective view on what has been reported to me. I have not had many reports. I've had minimal reports. I guess anecdotally, I could give you an example of the fall. The gentleman that writes for the Western PA football group, Billy Splain, to the best of his knowledge, he did something like there were 3,422 games scheduled. And out of those 3,422 games, and that's not the exact number, but it's pretty close, there were 3,200 and some played. It was over 94%. So, yep, there's hiccups here and there. I know people have shut down. I also know in the fall, we had some schools not in golf. They didn't have a breakout in golf, but they had something in another sport, and their health and safety program said those teams couldn't compete. So I think for the most part, the overwhelming majority, people have taken it very seriously. I think schools have taken their health and safety protocols seriously. They've taken sanitization and cleanup very seriously, and they've done their darndest to do whatever they can to get something in, because we've seen out of Wisconsin, Dr. Tim, I just had a presentation from NFHS with him. I can't think of his last name. It's like Guideline or something. Said the mental health effect that this COVID pandemic is having on student athletes is overwhelming. So that's what I know. Personally, the information relayed to me has been minimal.
One more, I'm going to go back to football. I'm going to go to football now. So we're not going to change it right now. Do you see maybe it changing down the road? But I guess it would entail something budging, as you said, either the reducing the number of qualifiers or starting earlier, because right now you're kind of set in the place that you're in, a 16-week season. If you're going to start when you're starting, and you're going to have the same number of rounds and so forth.
Yeah, and I think that's the issue, Bob. Yeah, I'm sorry, Keith. I apologize. The underlying current is there's a good feeling that 16 games is too much for high school kids, because even the colleges aren't playing 16. The pros play a regular season of 16. So that's the first part. The second part, they certainly liked the separation between seasons that we had this year to give student athletes that go season to season a little rest. They thought that was very, very helpful. And the third piece of it was they found out maybe by reducing the number of playoff games, it was helpful to get games that were more meaningful. But extending the season deadline allow those teams that may not have been have the better records to get another game or so. So they're the things that were bandied around. There wasn't any action taken, but people were reluctant. And you saw in the board today that they're reluctant to prohibit participation, as illustrated by giving the golf the extension and the co-ops the extension. So to answer your question in summary, I think it's to be determined as we go forward, because there still are some issues out there that people would like to see addressed. And this idea that everybody qualifies for the playoff, I think at one time had a lot of merit, and it certainly doesn't anymore, because seeing people get beat 56-0, 49-0 in a football contest in a first round doesn't help anybody from a competition standpoint. And it certainly doesn't do anything for the district, because nobody's coming to those games anyway. So we have some work to do.
Thank you, Bob.
Yep. Good to talk to you, Keith.
Yep.
Hey, Chris.
Hey, just follow up on that.
Yeah.
Since the strategic planning committee seemed to push all the fall stuff to the summer workshop for now, is this still a discussion for fall 2021? Or could you guys make a change in the summer that late for the fall? Or is this now looking at 2022, or what do you see as a timeline?
Well, let me answer that this way, because I don't have a crystal ball and I can't answer for all those 18 district elected representatives. However, historically, in the middle of a cycle, usually there's not a change. We're coming up the fall, the second year of a cycle. And I think if there would be a change where, let me throw out a number, we're at a 16-week season, reducing it to, let's really go ridiculous because it's not possible, a 10-week season, you would have to give people some time to adjust and adjust schedules. So with that being said, I think it lends itself to allowing possibly dialogue to continue, but yet not implement till there's time to not only vet it, but to give people the opportunity to react. And as you heard from the board and read in the minutes, there's a real dichotomy. They want to start and they want to reduce or end early, but they don't want to reduce. So something has to give. So that might be just one of those fodders, Chris, for another day to sit down and say, hey, what do you think about this? And I don't know what that is. I don't know what this is sitting here in front of you today. Others? Mike?
I'll ask one more, then follow up on
Yeah, sure.
the mask form for a minute.
Yeah.
It was a follow-up to someone else that asked too, but if you have a whole team right now, I think there are schools out there who think that wearing masks at all during, say, playing basketball is a health concern. Those people, have kind of come down on that side of the fence. If come state playoff time and that team would say, hey, we believe all of our players are at health risk by wearing a mask, will you guys have an issue with that? And do you guys do anything with the form other than exchange them between the schools? I mean, you guys gonna validate them or enforce them or do anything else, or is it mainly just discussion?
Well, if a school lists Chris Harlan and Bob Greenberg and Bob McCool and Bob Lombardi and Pat Tully and George Shue and Melissa Mertz on their list, that those people have the exceptions, we're going to take them and we'll go from there. How they determine that locally, we're not going to get into the validity of it. We're going to take them at their word that they did it properly. We do that in athletic eligibility. When you're out on the field or court, the principal has signed off that you're eligible to play that week because you're passing the minimum credits and you've had a physical examination and you're the proper age and all the things that go with it. So, it's the same thing here.
Hey, Dr. Lombardi, it's Steve Bennett from the Citizens Voice. How are you?
Good, Steve. We tried to
In
get you in the
terms
board
of the-
meeting early. Just thought.
Oh,
see
yeah, I
if you
saw
could handle
that.
the
I got
pressure.
kicked out. I thought Frank told you to get me out of there. In terms of the mask form, is there a specific time frame that it has to be submitted? I mean, is it when a team walks into a gym, here's our form, or does it have to be, submitted a day or two ahead of game time?
Well, no, it has, I think, very clearly in the top, it says to be completed by the school's principals, athletic director, athletic trainer on the day of the event and presented to the game manager. So it's current that day.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yep. Thanks, Steve.
Dr. Lombardi, Mike Drago.
Hey, Mike.
A question about the mask form. It's one thing for people to agree to wear a mask, but how will it be enforced to see that they wear them correctly? Anybody who's been out to basketball this season has seen a large percentage of players wearing them below their nose or below their chin, which defeats the purpose. So what can PIAA do to enforce proper wearing of masks?
Well, I think that'll start, Mike, with the district playoffs and the athletic administration of each school as well as the coach. Obviously, that's a point of emphasis as we go forward. And with our conversations of people that are in the playoffs, we're going to make sure that that message is reiterated and reiterated and reiterated. So I think we're not having the whole population of schools participating because obviously our playoffs become, a smaller percentage, a smaller percentage, a smaller percentage. And I think you'll see, like what we found in our other sports, compliance because people want to participate. And the simple fact is this: you want to play wearing a mask or not play at all? And I think everybody after last spring doesn't want to go down that road and not play at all. So we will do what we can to make sure that everybody's in compliance and playing by the rules.
Thank you.
That help? Thanks, Mike.
Hey, Bob, this is Steve Rotem with the PG, filling in from Mike White again here.
Yeah,
how are
hey,
you doing?
Steve. Where's Mike golfing?
Oh yeah, he's always out there, even in the cold. So I
Sleeping.
was just going back real quick to the Giant Center allowing a max of up to 500 fans for the individual wrestling, and the basketball championships are up to 500 people, so about 100, 125 fans maybe. I was just curious if you have any idea about how the process will go for selecting like which limited amount of fans will be able to get into those events.
Well, what we're going to first, let's basketball, if we have 200, it's easy. But I think what we're going to do is attempt to ask the schools to take care of their parents of their players first, obviously. I think that's vital. The same thing with wrestling. We're going to try to get the parents of the competitors first. So once a school determines those folks that they have, they may only have a limited number after that. So that decision-making would be in the local hands, local school hands.
Okay, I guess figure for wrestling, it might be a little more complicated without just having two teams and their parents. So I guess would it be like each individual competitor, maybe just their parents would be the only ones in for those matches?
You're clairvoyant. We're anticipating with wrestling at this time for every qualifier to get 2 tickets to start. And then hopefully we can get more room. We will. We'll take whatever we can. Of course, we have another challenge at the Giant Center. We have the AHL hockey team, and they have some provisions that we have to work through as well. So.
Thanks, Bob.
Yep. Steve, did I answer your question? think I got it.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Hey, Bob, have you put any thought into like media availability and stuff for those championships? Is it still going to be get there and do what we normally do?
Well, we're going to try to do what we did in the fall, Chris. We are going to have to restrict. We are going to have to spread people out. But I think part of the thing that may help us is single games. And by doing that, you know, we don't have someone sitting all day long. And I don't believe that Melissa had one issue with any of you folks having the ability to get access and cover your schools, and that the issue becomes the folks that aren't you, that aren't the professional writers that are covering all year long. It's the .coms and the websites and all that stuff. So I'm sure you'll hear some screaming and yelling about it, but you know what? We think that you folks that are doing the heavy lifting all year are first and foremost. And I think what we had in the fall was very successful. And I thought it worked well. Now, Chris, I'll throw it back on you. You were there. You think it worked? I think it did.
It was good. It was good. I just know once you go inside, you've got tighter restrictions than you do at a giant outdoor football stadium. That was
Yeah. Well, isn't it odd that we only had 384 in a stadium as big as that was, and we're going to have 500 in an indoor stadium? So the math is not working out, folks. I don't know. So we're hopefully in that 500 that we, you know, I mean, McCool, I mean, he keeps losing weight and looking like he's training all the time. You know, he might only count as a half a person. So.
You said half a worker or half a person?
Hey,
If he becomes my size, look out, he will be half a person.
Payback's a bitch.
My last question, I think.
Sure.
I saw you guys set a date for the wrestling team championship at Cumberland Valley. What went into that planning, and how determined were you guys as an organization to make sure you guys did crown a team champion this year?
Well, let's take the last part of that first. We think it's important because years ago, Chris, and we, you know, we still do this. We have the team champ at the individual on the accumulation of points. But it was important from our wrestling people as well as the board. Hey, there's kids on that team, the 13 weight classes. They're never going to get there in individual, but they certainly provide an assistance to develop a good, strong team. So the team concept went through, and we like it, and the schools like it. So we didn't want to shortchange them and go back to the old ways and say, we're just going to scrap it. So that was the first piece of it. The second piece of it was because of not being able to do certain things early because of the shutdown early in the season, we needed to get schools to have the opportunity to get a season in. So that was the erasing of the regular season and district deadline. So that helped. Now, since we're right in the throes of individual, we don't want to put team at the same time because you always hear, well, is that too much wrestling at that high caliber? We want the rest and all those type of things. So what we felt that our best deal was to let's start individuals, get as much as the season we can, get individuals and get that in with the reduced field of 8, 8, 8, 8, you know the numbers. And then to get to team afterwards, where some kids that may not have qualified still can work out. Now, that becomes a little bit of an issue, but at least we haven't heard one complaint of a coach or a kid that said, hey, you're extending my season. Hey, I get to wrestle a little more. This is pretty good, because that helps them, especially returning kids for next year. The other part of it is we wanted to get it in a concise 2-week format that we've had in the past so that we could have champions go against champions across the state and then bring in the top 4 teams for our semifinals, consolation finals, and championship. And we were very, very cognizant of not going into April for a couple reasons. You got Easter on the next weekend. That's a bad situation. The Giant Center wasn't available on some of the weekends that we'd like to go there. And further, we also didn't want to impact negatively spring sports that also took a hit last year we really are very sensitive to. Because just think about this, if we lost spring sports this year, the kids that graduated didn't play baseball or softball or track and field since they were a sophomore. That's not right. So that was the logic behind it. I hope it makes some sense.
Yep, it does. Thank
Certainly
you.
was a long path, and I compliment the staff. Mark and Pat and Jen and Melissa really did a lot of heavy lifting, awful lot of time. Mike Craig helped us tremendously. Some of our board members helped us tremendously in trying to get this off the ground.
Bob, it's Eric Kepler, Penn Live. How are you?
Good, Eric. How are you?
I'm hanging in there, sir. Just wanted to let you know happy hour's right around the corner. So that's good. I wanted to expand.
I know, I'm buying as usual.
Yeah, exactly. I'm good. I wanted to expand on Mike Drago's question, earlier question. Does the progression of who can first enforce a penalty on a team proper, I guess having 2 or 3 instances during a game of not properly wearing their mask, does that change at all inside the PIAA tournament, which is technically sort of under your watch?
Well, let's play that out. Let's take a hypothetical. I know Frank's on the call. Let's take a hypothetical. Let's say School A plays School B in the first round, and using Mike White's words, the kids are wearing chin diapers. And the officials have gone to the head coach, and he hasn't addressed it. And the officials at halftime go to the game manager, and the game manager goes over and addresses it, and the coach gives them one of these blow off type of things. And say they win the game, because if they lose the game, it probably doesn't matter. But say they win the game, we would be contacting them if we got a report, because we get a game report from every contest, and say, look, we can't have this. Here are the provisions. Here's what we agreed to. You have the opportunity of the certification if they're not wearing it. Otherwise, wear them properly. And we wouldn't probably take it away from the kids, but we could take the team, bring them in front of a district committee and take sanctions, any of the sanctions under Article 13 of the bylaws and penalties, which could go as deep as sanctioning of not allow suspension of championship rights for the following year.
Okay. So there would
Does that
never
make sense?
Yeah, there would never be under any circumstances an in-game penalty. It would all be taken care of after the fact or after the contest.
If it's an eligibility standard of the mask, and more than likely, yes. I can't say never, because say that you're the game manager and go over and address it, and the people act unsportsmanlike to you. We have an ability there for this game manager to take certain actions. So I don't want to say never, but I would say that the process that we have for eligibility would hold serve.
And this is just my last question. It's sort of a little far out there, but if an entire team was exempt, all had doctor notes from whatever, and an opponent obviously has an entire team, let's say in the semifinals, their entire team is wearing masks, would refuse to play. If they would refuse to play the team that no one's wearing a mask, would they be forced to forfeit?
That's correct.
If they refuse to play. Okay.
That's correct. Yep,
Okay.
You got it. Thanks, Eric. Good to see you. It's been a while.
Dr. Lombardi, Mike Drago again, a follow up on the COVID form. So this form will be signed by a school official or the athletic director or principal. And is it implied that the student athletes on that team agree to those conditions as members of that team?
Well, the schools are certifying for them.
Right. So if you show up, if you're a member of that team, then you go along with your school's agreement to wear the mask.
Absolutely. Yep.
Thank you.
Bob, one quick question, Bob Greenberg.
Yes, sir.
What happened to the spring sports talk? Did it ever get concluded about practices? There was a talk about shrinking it from 15 to 10 days.
Yes, I think, hold on one second, Bob. I believe the
Okay.
board passed. I believe the board passed unanimously to allow spring practice to start the earliest practice date, which is the 8th, but only mandate 10 practices instead of 15, and still serve on the first play date of Friday, March 26th, and that the standards of 5 practices must be completed before a scrimmage, and no more than 2 scrimmages in the season are still in place. So what it gives schools the flexibility of doing is, if you don't want to start on the 8th, because let's just say your team is in the wrestling championships, and you want to start on the 15th and just go 2 straight weeks, you may. We've tried to give schools the greatest flexibility to get that in, to get the spring sports season started, not only based on weather, but what happened last year. We don't want to lose spring for those students.
Will the pause guidelines be the same as we have now with practicing? And if a team has to pause for X amount of time?
Well, the pause are not PIAA issues. They're Department of Health, so.
No, I mean with the practice, you have the practice rule that's in place now for basketball teams, that if they have to sit out for X amount of days, they have to practice 3 or 4 days, whatever that is right now, is that formula? Is that going to be in place for baseball and the spring sports?
More than likely, yes, I believe it is. That was passed specifically for the winter, but it'll probably take place for the winter, for the spring as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Hey, we're good. Thank you all. I hope everything's well in your world. Moving along here. Hope to see some of you down the road here at playoffs. Eric, deal's still on, I'll buy.
All
See
right. Reach in 10.
I'll see you. Everybody have a good
Thanks,
day.
Doc.
Bye now.
Thanks.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you.